George Valles, does Europe have a disadvantage vis-a-vis the USA and China in developing AI due to privacy laws affecting access to data? So maybe Bart de Witte could also comment.
Thank you for bringing up that question. That's one that I really analyzing quite a lot, these three different markets. Although we don't have one single market in Europe when it comes to healthcare, we have 27 healthcare systems, and within the country, we have different healthcare systems. So from a market perspective, AI lives from scaling. We are really in the worst setup, and I don't talk about privacy because we can't scale. We will, and that's something perhaps good for Europe because we want not everything to be centralized. We want every country to flourish. That means that we need to look at these things differently. The US view is very much a view where data equals capital. That means that the more capital you have, the more you will acquire data. Google just acquired Fitbit, which is data. The more data you will get, the more insights you create, the more you protected by IP, the more you will be able to monopolize, and that's the trick that we should not follow, because we don't have that much capital, we don't have the scalability, and we should follow different rules. Looking at China, there is 1.4 billion inhabitants. There are companies like United Imaging Health China that are building X-rays and CTs that are all connected to the cloud. They don't have data ethics and data protection. And they need to share the data with the government. They have a very different view, but there is over 100 billion of capital. There is highly talented people there. The number of papers being published in AI is exploding, and the first prospective double-blind studies in healthcare on AI came from China. So I think we need to, in Europe, think a bit differently. That's why I established an open standard. I call it protectionism by openness. And I think creating an open license for these AI models, is that what could protect us from being dominated, because these companies will never, ever open their models because that's exactly their USP. So I think protecting ourselves through openness and democratic principles and creating our own market is that where we can flourish. And that will distribute to each company where we can use open source or open AI. We will have perhaps 35,000 companies instead of 3 companies that are all based in Silicon Valley, collecting all the data and creating the information asymmetries that created the power that you can even cite as a president. So I think we need to really watch out what we do for the future. And I think Europe needs to emancipate itself.
Yeah, I personally think you're right, Bart, and I rather liked your idea of open source in general. And